As the U.S. Supreme Court girds for Trump cases, can it be an effective firewall? President Donald Trump's sweeping assertions of executive power during his first weeks back in office appear headed toward U.S. Supreme Court showdowns, but it remains an open question whether or how much the justices might act to check his authority. Since taking office on January 20, Trump's views of presidential authority appear far less restrained than those of his White House predecessors, according to legal scholars, citing actions such as seeking to restrict birthright citizenship, withholding funding appropriated by Congress, and removing heads of independent federal agencies. The unifying theme is an extreme view of presidential power unlike anything we have seen before, said Erwin Chemerinsky, dean of the University of California, Berkeley School of Law. Trump prevailed in three major cases last year at the Supreme Court, whose 6-3 conservative majority includes three justices, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. He appointed during his first term as president. The court has moved U.S. law steadily rightward with Trump's picks on the bench. The Trump administration is gambling that the court won't be an effective firewall, and the administration has decent odds on its side, Harvard law professor Mark Tushnet said. Trump's actions have prompted dozens of lawsuits now proceeding through lower courts. They involve challenges to actions such as his hardline steps on immigration, federal workforce protections, the legal status of an entity created by Trump and led by billionaire Elon Musk, dedicated to slashing the U.S. government, and his moves to restrict transgender rights. The Supreme Court could be called upon in the coming weeks or months to act in a challenge to Trump's policies, depending on how quickly appeals move through the lower courts. Some of the plaintiffs have accused Trump of usurping the authority of Congress as set out in the U.S. Constitution. While Trump's fellow Republicans who control Congress have offered scant resistance, these actions by Trump may be vulnerable to being declared invalid by the judiciary, according to University of Illinois Chicago law professor Steve Schwinn. Schwinn cited Trump's efforts to unilaterally shut down federal government agencies, which are created, funded, and given authority by Congress, and his attempt to cut off federal spending appropriated by U.S. lawmakers. These efforts most clearly encroach on congressional authority and are least obviously supportable by the president's Article E powers, Schwinn said, referring to the Constitution's language delineating presidential authority. Federal judges acted to halt Trump's attempt to freeze federal grants, loans, and other financial assistance, even after the White House's Office of Management and Budget rescinded its wide-ranging directive announcing the funding freeze. Boston University School of Law professor Robert Say said Trump would be likely to lose if that dispute comes before the Supreme Court. Weighing against Trump is the Constitution's separation of powers between the U.S. government's executive and legislative branches, as well as federal law and the Supreme Court's own prior decisions, Say said. I could easily imagine 5 votes to brush him back on this, Say said, referring to the majority threshold on the court. Birthright, the lower courts have blocked for an indefinite period Trump's attempt to narrow birthright citizenship. Trump had directed U.S. agencies to refuse to recognize the citizenship of children born in the United States if neither their mother nor father is an American citizen or lawful permanent resident. Democratic-led states and other plaintiffs have argued that Trump's order violates a right enshrined in the Constitution's 14th Amendment that provides that anyone born in the United States is a citizen. The consensus among scholars interviewed by Reuters was that the Supreme Court likely would invalidate Trump's birthright citizenship action if the case reaches the justices. I think that Trump will lose, said John Yoo, who served as a Justice Department lawyer under Republican former President George W. Bush and is now a professor at UC Berkeley School of Law. The original understanding of the 14th Amendment and subsequent Supreme Court opinions and government practice require that everyone born in the United States become a citizen, you said. Some scholars were less certain, predicting that at least some of the conservative justices might be open to narrowing the Supreme Court's 1898 decision in a case called United States v. Wong Kim Ark. That ruling long has been understood to mean that children born in the United States to non-citizen parents are entitled to American citizenship.